The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide like the mouth of some sleeping giant. Lights floated in the air above 12 curved platforms, each one holding representatives from the most powerful species in the known galaxy. Today, they had gathered not for debate or treaty. They had gathered to watch a war. Counselor Battal stood at the center of the Volante platform, his silver skin catching the glow of the observation screens that filled the chamber's ceiling. His four eyes moved slowly across the tactical display, and a thin smile spread across his face. The humans were about to learn a very painful lesson. The Draxith fleet has entered the Kepler corridor, announced the chamber's automated voice. Contact with human forces expected within 2 hours. A murmur passed through the gathered species. Some leaned forward with interest. Others made quiet bets among themselves. War analyst Kryn, a tall and sharp-featured Draxith officer, stepped forward to address the council. His dark scales gleamed under the lights as he activated his presentation. Distinguished members of the council, Kryn began, his voice carrying the cold confidence of his kind. I present to you our analysis of the coming engagement. The human fleet consists of 47 vessels. Our Dominion fleet numbers 142. Human ships are slower by a factor of 3. Their shields operate at 60% of our capacity. Their weapons require twice the charging time. He paused and looked around the chamber with satisfaction. Our models predict complete human defeat within 6 to 8 hours. This is generous. It may take less. Battal laughed openly. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. 6 hours seems like a long time to crush insects, he said. Perhaps the Draxith are being too careful. Kryn's eyes narrowed, but he kept his composure. The Dominion believes in certainty, Counselor. We do not rush. We do not make mistakes. The humans will fall, and they will fall completely. On the observation screens, the human fleet appeared as small blue dots against the vast darkness of space. They held formation near the Kepler corridor, waiting. To the council members, they looked like prey that did not know enough to run far from the council chamber. Aboard the human flagship USS Resolute, Admiral Daniel Carter stood on his bridge and watched the same stars. He was a man in his 50s, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. His uniform was simple, his posture straight. He did not look like a man about to lose. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council, said Lieutenant Kevin Brooks from his communication station. He was young, barely 30, with quick hands and quicker thinking. They're offering to mediate. They suggest we consider surrender before the Draxith arrive. Carter turned slowly. Surrender? Yes, sir. They say it would save lives. Captain Maria Torres looked up from her tactical display. She was Carter's most trusted officer, a woman who could calculate firing solutions in her head while the computers were still warming up. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her expression showed no fear. They think we're going to lose, she said. They think we've already lost, Carter replied. He walked to the center of the bridge and clasped his hands behind his back. Lieutenant Brooks sent the following response. The United Earth Fleet thanks the Galactic Council for their concern. We respectfully decline their offer. We will handle this matter ourselves. Brooks typed quickly. Message sent, sir. In the council chamber, the human response appeared on the main screen. Battal read it aloud, and laughter spread through the platforms. Even species that rarely showed emotion allowed themselves small sounds of amusement. Handle it themselves, Varric repeated. How charming, how utterly human. Kryn did not laugh. He studied the message with narrowed eyes. Something about the Bahia. Human response bothered him, though he could not say what. It was too calm, too simple. Prey did not respond to death with such quiet words, but he pushed the thought away. The numbers did not lie. The models did not fail. Humans were young to space, primitive in their thinking, and foolish in their courage. They would learn. Back on the Resolute, Admiral Carter called his senior officers to the bridge. Commander Ashley Grant arrived from the weapons bay, her hands still carrying traces of the work she had been doing. Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell came up from the engine room, wiping sweat from his forehead. They joined Maria Torres and Kevin Brooks around the central display. "The Council thinks this battle will last 6 hours," Carter said. "The Draxith think they will crush us slowly and completely. They have studied our ships, our weapons, and our tactics. They believe they know everything about us." He paused and looked at each of his officers in turn. "They know nothing." Maria Torres allowed herself a small smile. "The convergence protocol is ready, Admiral. All ships are synchronized to within 3 milliseconds. Ashley Grant nodded. "Weapons are charged to 140% capacity. The Draxith think that's impossible. They think our reactors would melt. They don't know about the modifications," Ryan Mitchell added. "They don't know what human engineers can do when we're properly motivated." Carter turned back to the main screen. In the distance, the first Draxith ships were appearing on long-range sensors. They moved in perfect formation, beautiful and terrible, like a wave of darkness rolling through space. "The galaxy has watched humanity since we first left Earth," Carter said quietly. "They have measured us, tested us, and judged us. They decided we are weak because we are young. They decided we are foolish because we take risks. They decided we will lose because their models say so." He straightened his shoulders. "Today, we show them what their models missed. Today, we show them what humanity can do when we stop holding back." The bridge fell silent. Every officer felt the weight of the moment pressing down on them. They were outnumbered 3-1. They were outgunned by every standard measure. The entire galaxy expected them to die, and not one of them was afraid. Draxith fleet entering weapons range in 47 minutes. Kevin Brooks reported. Admiral Carter took his seat in the command chair. "All ships, this is the Admiral. Prepare for convergence protocol. We go on my mark." Across 47 human vessels, men and women took their positions. They checked their weapons, secured their stations, and waited. They had trained for this moment. They had sacrificed for this moment. And now, at last, the moment had come. In the council chamber, Varric Thel poured himself a drink and settled into his seat. This was going to be entertaining. He had no idea how right he was. The Galactic Council chamber had transformed into something like a theater. Representatives from a dozen species had settled into comfortable positions on their platforms, some with food and drinks, others with recording devices to capture the moment. They were here to witness history. They were here to watch humanity fall. Councillor Varric Thal had invited several junior members of his delegation to join him. He wanted them to see this. He wanted them to understand what happened to young species who thought too highly of themselves. "Watch carefully," he told them, pointing at the observation screens. "This is what happens when ambition exceeds ability. The humans reach too far, too fast. Now they will pay." War analyst Kryn stood at the tactical display, monitoring the movements of both fleets. The Draxith ships moved with machine-like precision, their formation spreading wide as they approached the Kepler corridor. 142 vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. Against them, the human fleet looked almost pitiful. "The humans are holding position," Kryn announced. "They are not attempting to retreat." "Brave," said a representative from the Morvic Collective, his voice carrying a note of grudging respect. "Foolish but brave. There is no difference between the two when you are dead," Varric Thal replied. On the bridge of the Draxith command ship Burning Claw, Warlord Govan studied the human fleet with cold interest. He was massive, even by Draxith standards, his scales scarred from dozens of battles. His eyes holding the patience of a predator who knew his prey could not escape. Open a channel to the human flagship, he commanded. His communications officer obeyed. And within moments, the face of Admiral Daniel Carter appeared on the screen. Gorvan noted the human's calm expression with something like curiosity. Most species showed fear when facing the Dominion. This human showed nothing. "Human commander," Gorvan said slowly, letting each word carry weight. "I am Warlord Gorvan of the Draxith Dominion. You have 1 hour to surrender your fleet and accept our terms. If you do this, your crews will be taken prisoner and treated according to galactic law. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. There will be no survivors. There will be no mercy." He paused, expecting fear, anger, or perhaps desperate negotiation. Admiral Carter simply nodded. "Understood, Warlord. Thank you for the clarity." The channel closed. Gorvan stared at the blank screen for a long moment. That was it? No threats, no pleas? Just acknowledgement? "Warlord?" his tactical officer asked. "What are your orders?" Gorvan pushed his confusion aside. It did not matter what the human thought or felt. The outcome was already decided. "Continue approach," he ordered. "Standard engagement pattern. We will give them their hour. Then we will destroy them." In the council chamber, the brief exchange had been broadcast for all to see. Varric Thal shook his head slowly. "They have accepted their fate," he said. The human simply acknowledged defeat. There was no fight in him. "Perhaps humans are wiser than we thought," another counselor suggested. "They know when they cannot win." Kryn said nothing. He continued to watch the human fleet on his tactical display. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the way his scales prickled along his spine. The human ships were too still, too quiet. They were not behaving like a fleet preparing for defeat. They were behaving like something else entirely. But what? Aboard the USS Resolute, Admiral Carter had gathered his senior officers once more. The main screen showed the approaching Draxith fleet, still 20 minutes from optimal firing range. The bridge was quiet, but it was not the quiet of fear. It was the quiet of focus. "Gorvan gave us an hour," Carter said. "We won't need it." Captain Maria Torres pulled up a holographic display showing both fleets in miniature. "The convergence protocol requires all 47 ships to execute a synchronized jump to pre-programmed positions. We'll have a window of approximately 4 seconds to align before the Draxith can respond." 4 seconds is a long time, Commander Ashley Grant said with a slight smile. "We've trained for this with windows of 2. Lieutenant Kevin Brooks looked up from his station. "Admiral, I've been monitoring Draxith communications. They're not even at battle stations yet. They're treating this like a parade." "Good," Carter replied. "Let them." Chief Engineer Ryan Mitchell stepped forward. "Sir, I have to report that pushing the weapons to 140% will stress the power conduits beyond recommended limits. There's a chance some ships might experience feedback damage." "What kind of chance?" "Small, maybe 3%. Carter nodded slowly. "And if we don't push them that hard? Then the Draxith shields hold and we lose. Then we push them." Carter looked around at his officers. Every person on every ship volunteered for this mission. They knew the risks. They chose to be here anyway. We don't insult their courage by holding back." The officers nodded. There was no argument. There was no doubt. Maria Torres checked her calculations one final time. "Admiral, the Draxith are using standard approach doctrine. They'll spread into a crescent formation and try to envelope us from 3 sides. It's what they always do. It's what works against every other species. And against us?" Torres allowed herself a small smile. "Against us, it means they'll be perfectly positioned for convergence. They're walking into our trap, and they don't even know it." On the observation screens in the council chamber, the Draxith fleet continued its slow, methodical approach. Varric Thal yawned, and checked the time. This was taking longer than he had hoped. "Must they be so careful?" he complained. "The humans are not going anywhere." "The Dominion does not rush," Kryn replied automatically. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. He had studied human military history. He had seen records of their conflicts on their homeworld. Humans were not known for patience. They were known for speed, aggression, and unpredictability. So why were they being so patient now? Aboard the Resolute, Admiral Carter rose from his command chair. "All hands, this is the Admiral," he said, his voice carrying to every ship in the fleet through the synchronized communication system. "In a few minutes, we're going to do something the galaxy has never seen. We're going to show them that numbers don't win battles. Technology doesn't win battles. Will wins battles. Courage wins battles. And we have both." He paused, letting his words settle. "The Draxith think they know how this ends. They're wrong. The Council thinks they're watching our defeat. They're wrong. Today, we write a new chapter in human history. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. All ships, prepare for convergence. Execute on my mark." 47 ships adjusted their positions by fractions of degrees. Power flowed to engines and weapons. Officers made final checks and took deep breaths. The countdown began. 10 minutes to contact. In the council chamber. Representatives poured fresh drinks and made final bets. The consensus was clear. Humanity would fall within 6 hours. It was simply mathematics. 9 minutes. 8 minutes. 7. Admiral Carter watched the Draxith fleet filling his screen. 142 ships, each one confident in victory. They had no idea what was coming. "All ships report ready," Maria Torres announced. Carter nodded slowly. "Then let's begin." The battlefield had gone quiet. Where minutes ago there had been fire and destruction, now there was only the slow drift of damaged ships and the soft glow of rescue beacons. Human shuttles moved through the debris field like careful hands, searching for survivors among the wreckage of the Draxith fleet. Aboard the USS Resolute, Dr. Nicole Baker had transformed the ship's medical bay into an emergency center. She was a woman in her 40s, gray-streaked hair pulled back, hands that had treated wounds from a dozen campaigns. Now those hands were treating Draxith soldiers, beings who had come to kill her and everyone she served with. "I need more plasma," she called out to her assistants. Draxith blood chemistry is different from ours, but the basic principles still apply. Stop the bleeding, stabilize the patient, worry about everything else later. A young medic hesitated at the doorway, looking at the wounded Draxith on the treatment tables. "Doctor, these are the enemy." Nicole did not look up from her work. "These are patients." Enemy is a word for admirals and politicians. In my medical bay, there are only people who need help. Now get me that plasma. The medic hurried to obey. In the Galactic Council chamber, chaos had replaced the earlier arrogance. Representatives shouted at each other, demanded explanations, accused their analysts of failure. The tactical displays still showed the aftermath of the battle, but no one could look at them without feeling something close to fear. Councillor Varric Thal had retreated to the back of his platform, his silver face pale with shock. His junior delegates stood around him, waiting for guidance that did not come. For the first time in his long career, Varric Thal had nothing to say. War analyst Kryn stood alone at the main display, reviewing the battle data for the 100th time. The numbers made no sense. Human weapons had fired at power levels that should have destroyed the ships using them. Human pilots had executed maneuvers at forces that would have killed any other species. Human coordination had been so precise that their ships had moved as a single organism. How did they survive their own weapons? The Morvic representative demanded. "Our analysis showed their reactors would fail at anything above 90% capacity." They fired at 140%. I do not know, Kryn admitted. The words tasted bitter on his tongue. Our models did not account for this possibility. Your models were worthless. Someone shouted. A communication alert silenced the argument. The face of Admiral Daniel Carter appeared on the main screen, calm and composed despite everything that had just happened. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, he said, the engagement is concluded. The Draxith fleet has been disabled. We are currently conducting rescue operations for enemy survivors and request any medical assistance the Council can provide. Many of the wounded require specialized care that our facilities cannot offer. The chamber fell silent. Varric Thal stepped forward slowly, his voice uncertain. You are requesting assistance? For the Draxith? Yes, Counselor. We have approximately 600 wounded prisoners who need immediate attention. We will treat as many as we can, but we do not have enough Draxith-compatible supplies. Why? Varric Thal asked. The question came out before he could stop it. You defeated them. Why save them? Carter's expression did not change. Because they are defeated. Because they are wounded. Because showing mercy costs us nothing and proves everything. We did not come here to exterminate the Draxith. We came here to defend ourselves. That objective is achieved. Everything else is just cruelty. The channel remained open. No one in the council seemed to know what to say. Aboard the disabled Burning Claw, human Marines had secured the vessel and were evacuating the wounded. Warlord Gorvan had been found in his command chair, injured but alive. 2 Marines had carried him to a shuttle and treated his wounds without a word of hatred or revenge. Now he sat in a holding area aboard the Resolute, his massive frame hunched, his dark eyes staring at nothing. The door opened and Admiral Carter entered alone. Gorvan looked up. Here was the human who had destroyed everything. Here was the enemy who had done what no enemy had ever done before. Gorvan expected gloating. He expected mockery. He expected the cruelty that he himself would have shown if the positions were reversed. Carter pulled up a chair and sat across from him. Your wounds are being treated, the Admiral said. You'll make a full recovery. Why? Gorvan asked. The same question Varric Thal had asked. The same question the whole galaxy was asking. Because it's the right thing to do. I came to kill you. I came to destroy your fleet and your people. I would have shown no mercy. Carter nodded slowly. I know. That's the difference between us. Gorvan was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost confused. Your weapons. Your tactics. We had no warning. We had no counter. How? You studied our ships, Carter replied. You studied our specifications. You measured what we showed you and assumed that was all we had. You made the same mistake everyone makes about humanity. What mistake? You assumed we were showing you everything. You assumed we had no secrets. You assumed that because we were young to space, we were young to war. Carter leaned back in his chair. Humanity has been fighting wars for thousands of years, Warlord. We have made every mistake a species can make. We have learned from all of them. What you saw today was just the smallest sample of what we are capable of. Gorvan absorbed this in silence. His entire understanding of the galaxy was shifting, and he was not sure he liked what he was seeing. What happens now? He asked at last. That depends on the Dominion. You can continue this war, and we will fight you. Or you can accept peace, and we will welcome you as neighbors. The choice is yours. You would make peace? After everything? We would prefer it. War is expensive in ways that have nothing to do with money. We lose people. We lose time. We lose parts of ourselves that never quite come back. Carter stood and moved toward the door. Humanity doesn't want enemies, Warlord. We want friends. We want partners. But if someone forces us to be enemies, we will be the worst enemies they have ever faced. Today was proof of that. He paused at the doorway. Rest. Heal. When you're ready, we'll talk about the future. The door closed behind him, leaving Gorvan alone with thoughts he had never expected to think. In the council chamber, representatives were still processing what they had witnessed. Kryn had compiled a preliminary report, and the findings were troubling. Human tactical innovation exceeds anything in our databases, he announced to the assembled species. Their ability to coordinate and synchronize suggests a level of discipline we did not believe possible. Their willingness to push their technology beyond safe limits indicates a tolerance for risk that borders on recklessness. And their decision to rescue enemy survivors demonstrates a moral framework that we failed to consider in our analysis. What does this mean for the rest of us? The Morvik representative asked. Kryn considered the question carefully. It means that humanity is not what we thought. They are not primitive. They are not foolish. They are not weak. They simply chose to let us believe those things. And if they deceived us about this, what else have they hidden? The question hung in the air like smoke. Every species in the chamber began to consider their own assumptions, their own beliefs, their own potential miscalculations. Varric Thal finally found his voice. We need to reassess everything, he said. The council must convene formally. We must understand what humanity actually is, not what we assumed them to be. For the first time since the battle ended, there was agreement in the chamber. The galaxy had thought it knew humanity. It had been wrong. And now it had to figure out what that meant for everyone. The Draxith fleet moved through space like a tide of darkness. 142 warships in perfect formation, their weapons charged, their shields humming with power. Warlord Gorvan stood on his bridge and watched the human fleet on his screens. The small blue dots had begun to move. Human ships are breaking formation, his tactical officer reported. They appeared to be scattering. Garvin leaned forward slightly. Scattering? That made no sense. A scattered fleet was a defeated fleet. Surely the humans knew this. Are they attempting to retreat? He asked. Negative, Warlord. Their movements are erratic. Some are moving toward us, others away. There is no pattern. In the Galactic Council chamber, War Analyst Kryn watched the same display with growing confusion. The human ships were flying apart like startled birds, their neat formation dissolving into chaos. His tactical algorithms could make no sense of it. They are panicking, Councillor Varric Thal declared, his voice thick with satisfaction. Look at them. Their formation has collapsed. They are running in different directions. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Several representatives began composing messages to their homeworlds. The war was effectively over. Human defeat had come even faster than predicted. This is disappointing, the Morvik representative said. I expected at least some resistance. Kryn did not laugh. He did not smile. Something about the human movements tugged at his instincts. They were too coordinated to be panic, too precise to be random. Each ship seemed to know exactly where it was going, even if the destination made no tactical sense, unless the tactical sense was something he had never seen before. Wait, he said suddenly, his voice sharp enough to cut through the laughter. Something is wrong. But no one was listening. Aboard the USS Resolute, Admiral Carter watched his display with absolute focus. 47 ships were now spread across a massive sphere of space, each one at a precisely calculated position. To outside observers, they looked scattered and lost. In reality, they formed a perfect three-dimensional trap. All ships in position, Captain Maria Torres reported. Convergence alignment achieved. Draxith fleet status? Exactly where we need them, Admiral. They've moved into the center of our sphere. They think we're running. Carter allowed himself a small smile. Time to show them otherwise. All ships, weapons free. Fire on my mark. Lieutenant Kevin Brooks opened the fleet-wide channel. Every human ship received the order simultaneously, down to the millisecond. 3, Carter counted. 2, 1, mark. 47 ships opened fire at the exact same instant in the council chamber. The observation screens turned white with weapons discharge. Beams of concentrated energy lanced inward from every direction, converging on the center of the Draxith fleet like the closing of a fist. The attacks came from above, below, left, right, front, and behind. There was no blind spot. There was no escape. Kryn stumbled backward from his display as alarms screamed across the tactical interface. The Draxith fleet was taking fire from all directions at once. Their shields, designed to deflect forward attacks, could not handle the simultaneous assault from every vector. Impossible, he whispered. This is impossible. The first Draxith ship exploded. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. Shield frequencies collapsed as human weapons found the exact resonance points that Draxith engineers had thought no one could calculate. Ships designed to withstand hours of bombardment were failing in seconds. Aboard the Burning Claw, Warlord Govan gripped his command chair as his ship shuddered under impact after impact. Warning lights flashed across every console. Officers shouted damage reports that blurred together into a wall of chaos. "Return fire!" Govan roared. "All ships, return fire! We cannot acquire targets, Warlord. The human ships are moving too fast. Our weapons cannot track them." The human ships were not staying still. Having delivered their opening volley, they were now executing a complex dance through space, weaving between the confused Draxith vessels, firing again and again. Their movements were synchronized to the millisecond, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be, never colliding, never crossing firing lines. It was beautiful. It was terrible. It was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. In the council chamber, Varric Thal had stopped laughing. His drink had fallen from his hand and shattered on the floor, but he did not notice. He could not look away from the screens. The tactical display showed the Draxith fleet as red dots. Moments ago, there had been 142 of them. Now there were less than 90, then 70, then 50. How? Someone asked. No one answered. No one could. Maria Torres worked her tactical console with machine-like precision, calling out targets and coordinating the fleet's movements. Draxith command ship is disabled. Their shields are down. Secondary command vessels are attempting to rally the fleet. Take out their communications, Carter ordered. Blind them. Commander Ashley Grant directed weapons fire with surgical accuracy. Human ships targeted the Draxith communication arrays, cutting the enemy fleet off from coordinated response. What had been an organized military force was now a scattered collection of individual ships, each one fighting alone, each one dying alone. The battle timer showed 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Warlord Garvan stood on his darkened bridge. The lights had failed. The engines had failed. His mighty warship drifted helplessly as human vessels moved around it like wolves around wounded prey. Through the viewport, he could see his fleet burning. "This cannot be," he said quietly. "Our shields, our weapons, our numbers, how?" No one answered him. There was no answer that made sense. Aboard the Resolute, Kevin Brooks monitored Draxith communications. "Admiral, their fleet is breaking. Surviving ships are attempting to retreat. Their coordination is completely gone. Casualty reports from our fleet?" Maria Torres checked her display. 3 ships reporting minor damage from power feedback. No casualties. All vessels combat effective. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That was how long it took Dot in the council chamber. The silence was absolute. 12 species sat in stunned disbelief, watching the tactical display tell a story their minds refused to accept. The Draxith fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had been shattered in less than 4 minutes. Kryn's tactical analysis lay forgotten at his feet. All his predictions, all his models, all his certainty meant nothing now. The humans had done something impossible. They had won not just a battle, but a demonstration of everything the galaxy had failed to understand about them. Varric Thal found his voice at last. It came out as a whisper. "What are they?" No one answered. But on the screens, the human fleet was already changing course. They were not pursuing the retreating Draxith ships. They were moving toward the disabled vessels. They were launching shuttles. "What are they doing?" someone asked. Kryn recognized the shuttle patterns. He had seen them before in records of human conflicts. His voice was hollow when he spoke. "They are rescuing survivors." The chamber fell silent once more. The humans had just destroyed a fleet that outnumbered them 3-1. And now they were risking their own lives to save the enemies they had defeated. Varric Thal sat down slowly. His legs would no longer support him. Everything he thought he knew about humanity had just been proven wrong. And somehow, that terrified him more than the battle itself. The humans were not what the galaxy thought they were. They were something else, entirely. 1 week had passed since the battle at the Kepler Corridor. In that time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous century. News of the human victory had spread to every inhabited world, carried by traders, diplomats, and the unstoppable current of rumor. Species that had never given humanity a second thought were now studying everything they could find about these strange beings from Earth. The Galactic Council had called a formal assembly. Not a casual observation session, not an informal gathering, but a full assembly with all 12 species represented by their highest authorities. The great chamber had been rearranged for the occasion. The observation screens were dark. The betting pools were silent. This was a moment for seriousness, not entertainment. Councilor Varric Thal stood at the central podium. He had spent the past week reviewing every piece of data about humanity he could find. He had watched recordings of the battle hundreds of times. He had read human history, human philosophy, human poetry, and he had realized how badly he had misjudged them. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. "1 week ago, we gathered to watch what we believed would be humanity's defeat. We predicted they would fall in hours. We were wrong. They won in minutes." He paused and looked around the chamber. But our error was not merely a failure of prediction. It was a failure of understanding. We looked at humanity and saw a young species with primitive ships and limited resources. We saw what they showed us and assumed it was all they had. We applied our models, our assumptions, our beliefs, and concluded that they could not possibly challenge the established powers of the galaxy. His voice dropped lower. We were arrogant. And arrogance, as we have now learned, is a dangerous thing. War analyst Kryn stepped forward to present his findings. His report had been distributed to all species, but hearing it spoken aloud gave it additional weight. "Human tactical capabilities exceed our previous estimates by a factor of 8, he said. "Their weapons technology, while appearing inferior on standard metrics, incorporates innovations we have never seen. Their coordination systems allow fleet-wide synchronization to within milliseconds. And their pilots demonstrated physical tolerance for acceleration forces that would incapacitate or kill members of any other known species." He brought up a display showing human physiological data. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme environmental conditions. They are adapted for endurance, recovery, and survival in circumstances that would eliminate other species. What we interpreted as weakness was actually restraint. What we saw as limitations were actually choices. The Morvic representative raised a hand. What about their decision to rescue Draxith's survivors? Our analysis suggested this was inefficient and strategically unnecessary. Kryn nodded. That is correct by standard military doctrine. However, our analysis failed to account for human moral frameworks. Humans do not view defeated enemies as worthless. They view them as potential future allies. Their mercy was not weakness. It was strategy of a kind we had not considered. The chamber absorbed this in thoughtful silence. A communication alert sounded. Admiral Daniel Carter had arrived at the station and was requesting permission to address the council. Permission was granted immediately. Carter entered the chamber alone, wearing his standard uniform, carrying nothing but himself. He walked to the central podium with the same calm confidence he had shown throughout the entire crisis. Every eye in the chamber followed him. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," he said, "thank you for the opportunity to speak." He looked around at the assembled species, meeting their eyes one by one. 1 week ago, you expected to watch my people die. You expected to witness our humiliation, our defeat, our end as a meaningful presence in galactic affairs. I do not blame you for those expectations. You based them on the information you had. You used your best models and your most careful analysis. And you reached conclusions that seemed logical at the time. He paused. But you missed something important. You missed the most essential truth about humanity. We are not defined by our ships or our weapons or our technology. We are defined by our will, our determination, our absolute refusal to accept that anything is impossible. His voice grew stronger. You measured our hulls and our reactors and our shields. You counted our ships and calculated our power output. You did everything right by your standards. But you forgot to measure the one thing that matters most. You forgot to measure our hearts. The chamber was absolutely silent. Humanity does not want war with the Galactic Council. We do not want enemies. We do not want to prove ourselves through violence. But we will not be dismissed. We will not be underestimated. And we will not be bullied by anyone, regardless of their numbers or their technology or their certainty of victory. He straightened his shoulders. We offer friendship to any species willing to treat us as equals. We offer partnership to anyone who wants to build something greater than themselves. We offer mercy to anyone who asks for it, and protection to anyone who needs it. That is who humanity is. That is what we have always been. From the back of the chamber, a door opened. Warlord Govan entered slowly, his wounds mostly healed, his massive frame carrying a weight that had nothing to do with his physical body. He walked to stand beside Admiral Carter. "I came here to destroy humanity," Govan said, his voice rough. "I came with certainty and pride and the expectation of easy victory. I was wrong about everything." He turned to face the Council. The Draxith Dominion formally requests peace negotiations with the United Earth Fleet. We acknowledge human military superiority in this engagement. More importantly, we acknowledge human moral superiority. They defeated us and then saved us. They had every right to let us die, and instead they risked their own lives to pull us from the wreckage. He looked at Carter. "I do not understand humans. I may never understand them, but I know this much. I would rather have them as friends than enemies. Any species that can fight like that and still show mercy is a species worth respecting." The chamber erupted in murmurs and whispered conversations. Varric Thal raised his hand for silence. "The Council recognizes the significance of this moment," he said. "In light of recent events, I move that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that status entails. I further move that a human representative be given a permanent seat on the Security Committee, The vote was unanimous. Admiral Carter accepted the offer with a simple nod. Humanity is honored. We look forward to working with all of you. As the formal session concluded, Varric Thal approached Carter privately. The silver-skinned counselor looked older than he had a week ago, as if the weight of his misjudgment had aged him. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. Before the battle, I mocked your people. I called you insects. I laughed at your courage. I was cruel, and I was wrong." Carter studied him for a moment. "Do you understand why you were wrong? I underestimated you. That's part of it. But the deeper error was assuming that different means inferior. Humanity doesn't do things the way other species do. That doesn't make us worse. It makes us different. And different sometimes is exactly what the galaxy needs." Varric Thal nodded slowly. "I would like to learn more about your people. Perhaps I could visit Earth someday?" Carter smiled for the first time since the assembly began. "You would be welcome, Counselor. Humanity has much to share with anyone willing to learn." As the council members dispersed, Kryn remained at his display, reviewing the final casualty figures. The Draxith had lost 93 ships destroyed and 49 captured or disabled. Human losses: 0 vessels, 0 lives. He added a final note to his report. Conclusion: human capabilities remain partially unknown. Current analysis suggests we have observed approximately 30% of their true military potential. Recommendation: do not engage humanity in future conflicts. Recommend friendship and cooperation as the only viable strategy. He transmitted the report and powered down his display. The galaxy had predicted humanity's defeat in hours. Humanity had ended the battle in minutes and changed everything in a week. And this, Kryn suspected, was only the beginning. The humans were awake now. The galaxy would never be the same.